Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. The sister of one of the passengers killed in the Fort Smith plane crash is hoping for answers and her brother's remains. Crystal Benwell says her brother Howie was loved by all. She says he was a talented musician, very funny, and could always cheer up her room. Now she's hoping part of his remains, even if it's something small, can be recovered and brought home. Carla Ulrich has the story.
Howie was loved by all. Anybody who had met him felt his, laughter, humor. They were delighted to see him, and he definitely had a gift that cheered people up.
Crystal Benwell's brother Howie was one of the passengers that died in the plane crash. She says it's been hard to come to terms with the loss of her baby brother. Benwell wants to know what caused the crash, and she wants to bring Howie's remains home.
I'm hoping to learn that there's parts of his DNA on whatever that we could get back.
The Transportation Safety Board says freezing rain is slowing down the removal of the plane. It might be another week before the plane is removed. It also says NWT Chief Coroner is responsible for examining remains found at the site. The CBC has asked Garth Eggenberger for an interview about what is happening with the remains. He hasn't returned our call. For now, Benwell is doing her best to get through the grief.
The hardest part is trying to realize that it's for real. That's the hardest part. It's hard to believe.
She said she does want to visit the site one day.
I want to go out there because that is the spot where his soul joined my spirit world, our spirit world, and was with our mom and his favorite Uncle Murdoch and other loved ones as well, and friends.
Meanwhile, Benwell said she does take comfort from the outpouring of love from her brother's friends, saying that even in his short life, her brother was a legend around here. Carla Ulrich, CBC News, Fort Smith.
It was an emotional day for a panel of residential school survivors in Iqaluit. The panel is part of the National Gathering for Missing Children, Unmarked Graves and Burial Sites. The panel talked about the need for elder counselors. Navilik Helen Tolaganek is from Cambridge Bay. She says she's been denied counseling from elders due to government red tape.
And I was refused when I asked to see an elder who used to live here in Iqaluit. And we grew up as little kids in Igloolik and Hall Beach. And I wanted to see the elders because I knew they were there with me, and they were healers and counselors to their people in the communities and the camps. And they said, no, it's too far, it's too expensive, you're in the wrong region kind of thing.
Other participants echoed Tolaganek's concerns, adding that some counselors don't speak Inuktitut. The conference continues in Iqaluit tomorrow. A polar bear was shot and killed in Kuujjuaq, Nunavut yesterday after causing havoc in the community. And a warning now that some of the images in this story may be disturbing. The bear was wandering through the community and even chasing pedestrians. It also tried to invade a home where a father and son barricaded the door with their bodies to stop the bear from crashing in.
It climbed up our stairs and it was heading to the door where Richard was leaning to keep the door shut. I went to go help him. When I heard it stopped, I went to look out of the window, and then Kevin checked the window in the basement and was face to face with the bear. The bear was young and skinny and obviously hungry, and that's probably why it did what it did.
After being seen in the community, the bear was eventually shot. This is the first time a bear has entered Kuujjuaq. An unusual warm spell has thrown a last-minute curveball at the Yukon Quest. The dog sled race between Whitehorse and Dawson City sets off on Saturday. But the first section of the trail is slick with ice, and now organizers are scrambling to make adjustments. Katie Todd reports.
In 3 days, Shipyards Park in Whitehorse was meant to be the lively start line of the Yukon quest, where mushers and dogs would set off on their journey through the snow. Instead, a sea of ice brought on by 2 days of warm temperatures and rain earlier this week. Yukon Quest's Executive Director Ben Smith says it's just not safe.
The concerns are that there would be difficulty in controlling a dog team as they move through the trail. Given the ice, given the lack of snow, it'd be hard to get snow hooks in. It would be hard to get dogs under control if they were to change direction. There was a potential of having difficulty navigating declines, grades and that on the trail.
Plan B is a new start line 25 kilometres north on Takini River Road. Mushers will also have to power down, which means starting the race with fewer dogs than adding more as they go. Michelle Phillips is one of 18 mushers taking part in this year's Yukon Quest after winning last year's event.
This morning, my husband and I ran my team, and I had an 8-dog team, and I had 100 pounds in my sled, and I had 2 feet on my drag mat for 2 hours trying to keep them slow. So yeah, those trails are pretty fast out there.
Smith says more cooperative weather outside Whitehorse means, on the whole, trail conditions are looking good. He says race marshals are monitoring conditions and double-checking the trail is safe. Mushers will compete in 100, 250 and 450 mile races. The finish lines are unchanged. Katie Todd, CBC News, Whitehorse.
Nunavut's MP says her territory has a passport problem, and it's affecting young athletes looking to go to the Arctic Winter Games in Alaska. In Ottawa today, Lori Idlout aimed her concerns at the Prime Minister. Here's that exchange.
The honourable member from Nunavut.
Nunavut athletes who earned their spot at the Arctic Winter Games in Alaska risk missing out because in Nunavut, Service Canada does not process passports. My office was helping until this government put even up more barriers. Families are now forced to pay thousands of dollars to fly down south to get their passports expedited or not compete at all. Can the minister ensure Nunavut has access to the same services as the rest of Canada?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
For the question. I know it's an important one for families across Nunavut, and that's why we're committed to working to resolve this issue. I was just up in Nunavut for a historic announcement around devolution a few weeks ago, working directly with the Premier to demonstrate how we build a stronger future together. This is an issue that I know the Minister is engaged with. We will look for solutions. We want to make sure that our young Nunavut athletes show what they're capable of at the Arctic Winter Games. Go Canada, go. Go Nunavut, go.
NWT residents who use the Access to Information and Protection of Privacy system say it's slow and frustrating. Some tell CBC that it can take months to get documents even after the Information and Privacy Commissioner orders the territory to provide them. Premier R.J. Simpson admits there are issues. He says he wants to find ways to streamline the system, but the work to complete the requests takes time.
How do we balance getting information to people quickly when we're working with some of these larger requests? So someone might just need a little bit of information. They might want to access a little bit of information. So how can we streamline that process so they are not in line behind someone who's asking for 10,000 pages of documents that needs to be reviewed and redacted?
Simpson says the territory is working on filling vacant positions in the office that handles ATIP requests. And he says the delays are growing pains from the new ATIP legislation that came into effect in 2021. He says the government is required to conduct a review of the system within the first 18 months of this assembly. He's hoping it can come sooner rather than later. The Yukon Child and Youth Advocate Office has launched a progress tracker for the government. It's based on recommendations on ways to address systemic issues affecting children and youth in the territory. Those issues include things like school attendance, group homes, and mental wellness. The tracker uses faces drawn by a child to rank the government's progress on implementing the office's recommendations. Child and youth advocate Annette King says the tracker will help improve accountability and transparency. She also hopes it helps people understand that her office does more than just issue reports.
That we want to be able to explain to young people today and in the future that we took these actions because of what they're hearing to make sure their rights are upheld and that we stay on it. Like, we don't just submit a report, and walk away. We are on it every day until we see full compliance.
The office has ranked the government's progress on one issue so far, how to respond to sexual abuse in Yukon schools. There's been some progress on 6 of the recommendations, such as providing specialized education supports to kids who need it. There's been significant progress on providing appropriate sexual health information to students, and the government has fully implemented a recommendation that it publicly respond to the office's recommendations.
Why, hello. It's me, Seth Rogen. 10 potters will be facing off in the most extraordinary ceramics competition show that this country has ever seen.
I'm Jen Robertson, and I'll be your host.
So are these potters ready?
This exploded.
To test their skills at the wheel and push themselves every week?
Oh, no.
So the ones that do stand out, they really do stand out.
And who will be named champion?
I'm excited to see it. Oh, wow.
Of the Great Canadian Pottery Throwdown.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A Russian scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
It appears we have a mystery to solve.
You'll be next. He's dead.
A murderer was murdered.
Toronto Constabulary, stop!
Five players from the Canadian team that competed at the 2018 World Junior Hockey Championship intend to plead not guilty to charges of sexual assault. That's according to their lawyers. We now know the names of all of the individuals involved. They've been charged in connection with an alleged incident in London, Ontario 6 years ago. 4 of the players are now with NHL teams. They are Dylan Dubé of the Calgary Flames, Cal Foote and Michael McLeod of the New Jersey Devils, and Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers. Former NHLer Alex Fermonton, who has been playing in Switzerland, is the 5th player charged. A woman says she was assaulted by all men following a gala honoring their success at the annual junior tournament. There's concern in Atlantic Canada that fuel companies are charging much more than they should to comply with environmental regulations. A new independent report says the actual cost is several cents a litre less than what companies collect. Peter Cowan explains.
Right now, when you fill up in Atlantic Canada, refineries get about 5 cents a litre to pay for new federal regulations. Regulators have put this in place to cover the costs of reducing the carbon that's emitted when fuels are refined and burned. But a new report commissioned by Environment and Climate Change Canada and done by an independent consultant says the actual cost to comply is much lower, less than a cent a litre.
In these years, so like in 2024, the incremental impact will be quite small and larger, less than 1 cent for all provinces.
Figuring out the actual cost isn't straightforward. The refineries have options about how they comply, from investing in new technology to buying credits from other companies. The companies won't reveal how much they're spending because they don't want their competitors to know. In the rest of the country, gas prices are set by the market. But in Atlantic Canada, regulators set the price, so they need to figure out a fair price to add on. But a Liberal MP from New Brunswick says the current charges are just padding fuel company profits.
Atlantic Canadians are being overcharged, and it's unacceptable again at a time when, costs of living is so high, and we know that energy in particular is on the mind of Atlantic Canadians in these freezing cold temperatures.
But the Industry Association says the new government regulations require billions in upgrades. They warn if fees are cut too far, companies could decide to stop selling gas.
If
these utility boards, where prices are controlled, don't find the right number to fairly compensate how expensive this regulation is, there's a real risk that we'll end up with a security of supply issue.
It's up to regulators to decide what exactly a fair amount is. The board in New Brunswick is weighing evidence and analysis this week. Other provinces will be watching closely to see what they decide is fair. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Canada's overall rental vacancy rate dropped to 1.5% last year, the lowest since 1988, when the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation started recording that data. A combination of high demand and low supply caused rental prices to soar last year. Aaron Collins has the details.
The CMHC says the stock of rental units is at an all-time low in Canada and that the average price to rent those homes is rising at a record rate. It's a perfect storm for thousands of Canadians searching for a place to rent. The national vacancy rate has plummeted to just 1.5%, and the cost to rent a place has spiked by an average of 8%.
Demand is coming from new renter households coming from abroad as immigrants, but also young Canadians who are searching for their first dwelling, and also older Canadians who are choosing and needing actually to downsize.
That squeeze is being felt most by lower income Canadians, including seniors. At this seniors center in Calgary, staff say the wait for affordable seniors housing in the city has skyrocketed in recent years.
It's a crisis, and it's terrifying and heartbreaking when people come in and say, I don't know where I'm going to live. You know, I sold my house, I'm renting now, or I want to move into an apartment, and they just can't get in or they just can't afford it.
Alberta saw the biggest drop in vacancies in the country. The province also saw the largest jump in rental prices. In Calgary, rents ballooned by more than 14% in the last year, a jump that has forced some in the city onto the streets.
So we have 115,000 people in Calgary, that's about 40,000 households, who are at extreme risk of homelessness. So this means that they're still sheltered, but they have leveraged absolutely every asset they have. They're probably in an overcrowding or couch surfing situation, and they're barely holding on.
The rental crunch, part of a larger affordability crisis, driven in part by inflation and high interest rates. Those pressures are expected to ease somewhat this year, but the real key to Canada's rental crunch is a lack of housing, and that shortage something that will take more time to address. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
One of the biggest and most popular for-profit thrift stores is being criticized about pricing. In the past, customers could rely on getting a discount by shopping at Value Village. But now many are accusing the company of massively marking up used items. Nisha Patel has that story.
Shoppers like Evan Boyce say Value Village has lost its value.
Just kind of feels like a rip-off, to be honest.
In Toronto, he spotted this used vase for sale for about $9. Then realized it would have cost him only $3 to buy brand new at Dollarama.
Most of what they have was donated, so why is there the need to mark it up so much?
The wild prices are a hot topic on social media. From kids' shoes in British Columbia to books in Manitoba, examples of massive markups are piling up.
Give me a break, Value Village. Give me a break.
Customers have called out other thrift stores too, though many, like Goodwill, are nonprofits. Value Village is a for-profit business owned by an American private equity firm. While all of its inventory comes from secondhand donations, Value Village pays charity partners a flat rate for the goods they collect on the company's behalf.
Thrift proud, Value Village.
This recent backlash could weigh on the brand.
If you're going to a thrift store, we would assume that it's going to be less money. And so when you realize that it's not, it kind of breaks what we know to be true.
There are few rules about how businesses price their products. But experts say customers who feel duped are less likely to return.
We're going to be a lot more cautious next time we buy.
Canadians have been turning to thrift stores more often lately, making an effort to shop sustainably or trying to save money as the cost of living soars. They may need to remember the motto, buyer beware.
If you see something that doesn't look like a good price, it's easy to walk on and find something else new.
Some shoppers say they'll still hunt for a bargain.
They're going to try and maximize
get as much money from you as you can, and it's up to us to keep our money.
And Miss Eleanor, what's your favorite thing that you find there?
I don't know. I like to read books, so I find a lot of good books there.
Value Village says thousands of products come through its stores every week. And if customers think an item has been mispriced, they should bring it up with a manager. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Seamstresses in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut are taking their parka making to the next level, thanks to a workshop designed to train and support them in their business. The workshop is called Huktuti, and it's the 4th time it's happened in Nunavut. Each community sent 2 people to Rankin to represent their regional styles of parkas, and everyone shared their knowledge about traditional and modern pattern making.
We made our own patterns, and we get to keep the parkas for ourselves. Everyone was sewing their own parkas, and we all adjusted the sizing to our liking.
The workshop was hosted by Ili Tuksinik. It delivers culture-based programming across the Arctic. Organizers say the response was overwhelming, and they hope to have more workshops in the future. Low snow levels in parts of Alberta have some people worried about something that may seem a long way off. The president of the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association says without any significant moisture this winter, there could be as few as 10 weeks to go until the start of the wildfire season. Terry Trembath has more.
The president of the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association, Randy Schroeder, says its 800 members are preparing the best they can within budget limitations. In an open letter to the province today, Schroeder said the AFCA has met with key ministries asking for additional resources, increased training capacity, equipment, and to create an advisory committee to develop a dedicated provincial strategy to mitigate risks. Without knowing what the province's plans are, there is trepidation heading into this season after a long and arduous one last year.
We have yet to even get basic plan for what the province is actually budgeting, what their plan is for staffing, and because we're trying to gauge what kind of impact it may have on our rural and career firefighters.
The 2023 wildfire season was unprecedented, with over 2.5 million hectares of land burned. Terry Trembath, CBC News, Calgary.
Well, meanwhile, a community in southwestern British Columbia is under a local state of emergency because of flooding. The village of Pemberton issued evacuation orders for several properties yesterday, and another 45 in low-lying areas are being told to be ready to leave quickly. Heavy rain since last week and melting snow from unseasonably warm temperatures has caused rising water levels across the region. Levels have dropped since yesterday, but more rain is falling today and more warmer weather is expected to accelerate the snow melt. Warm weather and freezing rain are making things messy in Fort Smith, NWT. Roads are slick, trails are messed up, and waterways are being described as sketchy. Earl Evans is a local harvester and land user. He says conditions are making snowmobile trails unsafe and warns inexperienced riders to stay clear of the river and other bodies of water.
With this warm weather, a lot of the snow has gone off the river. So when you're looking over the hill down here, you see the river, but you see great big patches of blue like water. So, if you don't know the river, it's hard to tell what's overflow and what's open water. And a lot of people go play on the river with skidoos, just to have fun, go down there and play around. And people make trails where there's no trails on the river, and that's very dangerous. Because these big machines, they can go over an inch of ice if they're moving fast, traveling fast. But somebody comes along and doesn't expect anything. There's no ice here, and they could go through, And it's usually people that are unaware of what they're traveling on. That's when it happens. And when you go through on the Slave River, you're not going to get out of there. You're history. So it's very dangerous to make trails on the river. You don't know where you're going. I know there's a lot of people that trap across the river. We have my cousin Richard Mercady and Louis Bolio, Kenny Schaefer. All those guys trap there. So they mark a trail in the fall, and they usually mark it with spruce boughs. And everybody should stay on those trails. Don't go making your own trails all over if you don't know the river, because it sets a dangerous precedent. Somebody's going to drown, and it's going to be too late.
Evans says freezing rain is a problem for animals as well. He says wolves can easily track their prey on top of the ice, but bison and foxes have a hard time getting food that's buried underneath it. Evans predicts we'll be seeing some skinny bison come springtime. Now, the freezing rain isn't all bad news. Some people, as we can see, are making the best of it. This is 11-year-old Kira Wetmore. She's ice skating down the street in Fort Smith. She couldn't resist strapping on her skates. Her mom, Allison Wetmore, says it was the best thing ever. She says Kira even got in a little hockey practice. Let's take a look at the forecast now, where you live. Well, +2 tomorrow in Fort Smith. That is going to continue to be unseasonably warm. -8 in Yellowknife, still also well above normal. So there's definitely still some cooling off, hopefully, in our future. That is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. Have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Closing this case gets you one step closer to you getting back on the squad and keeping you out of prison.
You're not a detective. You're a con artist. You have a driver's license, right?
Of course. I have 9. If you couldn't be a cop, what would you be?
Nothing. My dad raised me to be a cop. That's who I am. Stay here.
You're adorable.
You guys are making this entire station look like a circus.
He's busy trying to solve a murder. What are you doing?
Thanks for having my back.
I got you.
Is this your girlfriend? This is not my girlfriend.
She's way too cool to be your girlfriend.
It's not way too cool to be my girlfriend.
Who's that?
He's fired!
I'm starting to think you don't know what a joke is.
You're gonna eat nothing but raw spleen. Getting into peak physical shape is 50% training, 50% diet.
Never occurred to me to bring lawn chairs out here. Never occurred to the Egyptians to build the pyramids until it did.
Oh! Simpler times.
Let's set you up with a lunch date.
You're deaf? I don't know sign.
This feels a little round.
If accessibility is wrong, we don't want to be right.
Spicy.
Oh, do tell.
Breaking news. The critics are talking.
Oh, this is it.
Imagine the Wonder Years if it were written by Gene Shepard.
They twisted it all up.
Well, you can't trust a newsman. Highly recommended.
Onwards.
Heartwarming.
This doesn't mean I'm better than anyone here tonight. It just says it.
100% fresh.
Well, I suppose we don't need to get rid of the cable right this second.
Son of a Critch. You look like a cod gasping for air.
Name something you see people do on TV that you secretly could do better.
Host.
I knew that was hard.
Family Feud Canada. Watch free on CBC.
We want you to know that you can ask us anything. Need help with your Riz?
You just made Riz uncool. There is something that's been bothering me. Are mutual funds or ETFs better for my long-term goals?
What do we know about that with Angie? Andrew Chang.
I think we can explain.
Watch free on CBC Gem.